This is the Action Cast, the only podcast that knocks out Russians to save democracy. And now, our feature presentation. Okay, well, this is the Action Cast. My name is Joe Drilling, and happy holidays, everybody.
Merry
Indeed.
Christmas.
I'm here with Eric Allen, who just wished everybody a Merry Christmas. Hey, Eric.
I think we must celebrate the most important holiday of them all by saying Happy Birthday, Polly.
That's right. That's right. That's the only Bryce Wilson wishing Paulie a happy birthday. And
the internet's biggest Creed 2 fan. So,
and may I be the last one to wish Ethan Chang a happy Hanukkah, because Hanukkah started in like late November this year and has been over for probably like at least 2 weeks at this point. So
yeah, it was basically at the same time as Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah. So
happy birthday, Polly, or excuse me, happy birthday, Polly, is the best line in any of these three movies.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about principally Rocky IV, both the original cut and the new Rocky versus Drago director's cut. And I think we're also going to discuss Creed 2 a little bit, because Creed 2 is basically Rocky IV 2 as well.
Yep.
So here's a confession from me. I haven't seen Creed.
But that's a bad news.
Like to
I watched it for the first time this
much
weekend because I felt like I couldn't watch Creed 2 without having seen Creed. And I have to say, Creed might be the best Rocky movie.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah,
I am really curious. I'm really curious what Joe will think of it, not seeing Creed. But let me just say this, that Creed is not just a good movie. Creed is a fucking miracle, because there's literally no reason for Creed to be as good as it is. Like, Sylvester Stallone's whole career is basically him, like, combining the worst aspects of the prima donna and the whore. And there's no reason why he should have bowed to someone else's version of Rocky. There's no reason that the studio should have financed an intensely personal Rocky film from someone who was not Sylvester Stallone. But we have seen Sylvester Stallone's idea of gritty realism for Rocky, and it's a film in which a 62-year-old Rocky fights a fighter who's half his age and whose name is Mason Dixon. So, like, there's a film, like, the fact that Stallone would humble himself so much and recognize Coogler's talent and just scrape off the kitsch of 40 years and give, like, a performance like that heartfelt as he gives in Creed is like a literal miracle to me. I feel like really strongly about that film, and to me, I'm not going to go so far as to call it the best Rocky film, but it is the best Rocky sequel by far.
I watched all the Rocky movies. I watched all the fucking Rocky movies over the last month. It's the best one.
I mean, the first one.
You think it's
good.
better than the first one?
The first one's pretty good.
I'm still giving the first one the edge, and like the important thing about the first one that people forget, though, I just want to say, is that the great thing about Rocky is that it's where the 70s meet the 80s. Because Rocky is 60% a movie about a sad person being sad. That is like all of Rocky. It's about this like shit go nowhere guy who's living this shitty life and is working this shitty job as this mob enforcer and is getting the shit beat out of him for $20 a night and like trying to stall this kind of heart-rending romance with like this woman who's like very like socially stunted, and like it's just the whole first 2/3 of Rocky is just this dude's shitty life, and then you have this shining moment where you have this 80s style crowd pleasing filmmaking that still has the integrity to have him lose and like have that downbeat 70s ending that plays in the best way possible.
But he loses by decision, and I think
right.
And I mean, part of it is that
he loses, but he achieves his goal.
Right,
which is why
exactly.
It's a great movie,
his goal is not to win, but to go the distance with the champ.
To prove to everyone that he's not a loser, and mostly to prove to himself that he's not a loser.
I'm just saying that in the Venn diagram of 70s honest, emotional, downbeat, naturalistic filmmaking and 80s crowd pleasing, like Rocky is the sweet spot. It is like the perfect
Great.
Moment. And And I just want to go ahead and say that I don't think that Creed 2 is that good at all. But I will say
yeah,
that
it's not.
aside from Creed, I will say that Creed 2 is, I think, the best Rocky sequel. I will take it over any of the Rocky sequels, and I include the original Rocky 4 in that.
Well, I mean, so that we've talked about a long time ago we talked about Rambo, and it's very much the same sort of not exactly the same, but it's a similar thing where like
It's extremely similar. There's just a couple less movies in the
Right,
Rambo. Like you
right.
can map one onto the other though.
right.
Here's the thing of
Rambo
having just rewatched all these movies. There's basically there's three buckets of Rocky movies. There's Rocky 1 and 2 and Creed. That's like the semi-serious like character study sort of thing where boxing is like an important part of a character's life, but that's not what the movie's about really. And then there's
Just like to put in the
Creed
parenthetical
2,
that I've
Rocky
never liked
3, and
Rocky
Rocky
2.
4, which are just like big, like dumb sports movies and are fun for what they are. And then there's Rocky 5 and Balboa, which are just like nonsense garbage that I hated to even revisit and barely paid attention to because they're so bad and stupid. They're just like the stupidest, like
I actually want to ask.
man beats up young dude.
Right. I want to ask you though, which one did you think was worse? Having just rewatched them, 5 or 5 or 6.
Is worse. 5 is always the worst.
5 is worse.
5 is still the worst.
5 is borderline unwatchable, but I mean, 6 is kind of, it's like Balboa is dumber because he's so much older again.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And then he wins a fucking bare knuckle. Anyways, it's dumb, right? But I mean, that at least has some interesting stuff with his son trying to like figure out who he is, and like there's some potentially interesting ideas in that one. Whereas 5 is just
I was honestly I was
a bad idea poorly executed.
I don't want to jump way too far ahead, but I was surprised that Milo Ventimiglia like returned in Creed 2 as adult Robert.
I love that scene. That cameo pays off so well, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But that last line like does legitimately make me tear up from Creed 2, and that's like, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's like a fine line to walk, because the thing I love about Creed is he somehow got all the kitsch off. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how Kugler did it. I don't know how.
I was gonna say somebody else made the movie.
Yeah, it's it's also so far removed.
Somebody else made the movie, but Stallone had the ego, like was able to put down his ego and listen, and I think that's huge because like he's literally never done that in his career.
That's that's not entirely true. That's when he does do that though. When on the rare occasion he does do that though, he can turn in some genuinely great performances, right? Like,
and
not everything is Cobra.
Not everything is Cobra. Some things are Copland or Creed.
But Creed is way better than Copland. Like to me, like he really gets it in Creed. And I'm just the point I guess I'm trying to make is that Creed 2 is not that. Creed 2 brings some of the kitsch back. Like Creed 2 brings some of the cheesiness back. But like it's still just a satisfying and entertaining watch. And I really can't wait to talk about how much I love Lundgren's performance in it.
That's why it's in the big dumb sports movie bucket and not the quiet character study bucket.
Yeah, but it's
like buckets of Rocky. I'm telling you,
it's well, as long as we don't have to go through 36 chambers of Stallone to get there. But it like Ethan said, it maps similarly onto Rambo, which is like the first Rambo is this very serious character study thing that is really not what when people think of the franchise, the first one isn't what people think of. The later ones are that, and then with Rambo, the second and third ones are ridiculous, and then the fourth one kind of reels it in a little bit, even though it's closer to the production in time-wise. It's closer to Rocky Balboa than it is to Creed 1. It feels, I mean, I haven't seen Creed 1, so I can't say, but Rambo 4 feels like it's probably closer to what Creed 1 does, but not as good as that. And then I still haven't seen Rambo 5 because I heard it was such a fucking egregiously terrible piece of shit that I actually
forgot that even came out. Yeah, my mind erased it.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
In 2019, Rambo 5 came out.
Ethan chose wisely.
Did it end up being? Yes, was it about Mexican like a cartel?
Yes.
Okay,
a cartel kills his like adopted daughter, which is actually his niece, I think, or something. I don't remember. And so he like takes revenge on the cartel.
Right. These
really
movies also.
He waited so long to make the movie where Rambo destroys ISIS that somebody else did that, so he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, much like the Rocky and Rambo also have a similar arc in that they get more racist and jingoistic the further into the franchises you get, right?
Well, so this is what, like, getting out of my league for a bit, I gotta say that I find the racial politics of Rocky actually fascinating, because that's why Creed got made. Is that, I mean, the argument has been made that Rocky is a reactionary film based on Ali. I think you have to temper that with the realization that Rocky does lose. Like, if the movie had been, the Great White Hope reclaiming the title,
That's
then
Rocky
yes,
too.
And that's the
argument
problem
you
with
can make.
Rocky
Yes,
2,
that's
I
Rocky
think, is
2.
that it tells the
Well, I have-
uninteresting
yeah.
version of the same story.
Right.
Yeah.
I have already gone on the record saying that I have literally, like, even when I was 8 years old and like I watched it for the first time on VHS, I have never liked Rocky 2. I've never found it a satisfying sequel. I think
mean,
it's pretty much dog shit.
I mean, Rocky 2 has a lot going for it in that it has a lot of.
Okay, hold on. Hey, we just got a chat. I don't usually read the chats during the action cast, but someone named Alexar chatted in that this podcast is dedicated to the brave Mujahideen of Afghanistan.
Yes, this is true.
But Rocky 2 has the best angry Burgess Meredith yelling. Like, all the dumb stuff that sort of became part of the popular culture consciousness stuff is all from Rocky 2.
And crap lightning.
Right. Like, all that stuff is great, and that's all from Rocky 2, and that kind of saves that movie, but it is really dumb and bad that they walk it back and then have Rocky win. And then Rocky 3 is just like borderline like white nationalist propaganda. Even though it's like the best
Hulk
sports
Hogan's
movie.
in it, I mean,
Hey-o.
I mean, it does have a black guy and a white guy hugging in the waves. So how?
Right.
I mean,
listen.
That's the interesting thing, is that because of Stallone's decision to keep Carl Weathers in the cast, these movies end up with a pretty accidentally black cast, and like that continues for all of its flaws through Rocky Balboa. And Coogler's gone on record in interviews of like that's why his dad showed him these movies, was because like they were a place with roles for black actors and substantial roles for black actors in the stuff. And so like to a certain extent, like Creed is how culture is supposed to work, because you have this film that you can read as reactionary, and that through like nobody's plan like ends up having a strange amount of like racial equity in it, and that then inspires this black filmmaker to find something really meaningful in it that like perhaps was never intended by any of its authors, and that leads to this movie that is like arguably one of like the best of the franchise. And it's like I don't know anything that evolves like this over the course of like 40 years. I mean, the whole franchise is fascinating on a lot of levels. You don't have people play the same character for like 50 years. You don't have like something mutate and grow in the same continuity for all the weird stands it takes. And you don't like watch this movie like other movies go through like 18 different cultural interpretations and like stand up to all of them. So it's like I said, intentional or not, for something that was written in 3 days, this whole franchise has ended up being like
yeah.
really
I mean,
fascinating
also
in a lot of different ways.
I mean, there are franchise, but it's usually horror movies, and usually past the first couple of them, they're just like hot shit garbage that aren't worth looking at. But
even those don't usually extend this long, right? Like they get rebooted by the time they would go this long. Like when you like you have like I watched all the Friday the 13th movies over the last year, and like you get you go from 80, you get 8 of those movies in the 80s, and then you get 2 in the 90s, and then they reboot it. When it gets like it's so long in the tooth, they reboot it by basically just remaking like parts 1 and 2 in one movie. But Rocky, like, it's still this, like, by the time you get to Creed 2, it's 40 years after the first one, just about, or more than 77 was the first one.
Yeah,
76.
Creed 3 is
76.
Creed 3 is shooting.
Yeah,
like,
Creed 3 is happening. Yeah.
This continuity is like is continuing.
But
so,
Stallone's not involved in that
Jordan
one,
Griffin.
right? He's
No,
making
they have said
different
that
projects.
I don't think he's making. Well,
I think he's making
I don't think
something
he's
else.
actually making a Rocky project.
He's
but
making he's making another
he
movie
might
where
do a
he
cameo or something.
trains. I think he's making a movie where he's training like an immigrant or something, like that is like disconnected from the Creed series, because the new one is supposed to deal with Mr. T's son from Rocky 3, which I'll
Is
be
that
very
the
curious
actual,
to
is
see.
that the actual plot they're going? That might be. A
Yeah,
bridge too
supposedly.
far.
And then
I-
after this
we'll
one, they're
find
gonna
out-
do it's gonna be Tommy the Duke Morrison's son from Rocky
Yeah,
5.
there you
and
go.
Yeah, we'll
then
see.
So that's. I'm gonna go ahead and make that. Since you made that reference, I'm gonna make that Creed 2 joke of Dolph should have like walked out of the restaurant and go like, no pictures of Tommy the Duke either. So
Yeah, right. So, all right. So, I think, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the franchise as a whole.
Actually, I have a way to kind of bring it together. Is that
Please
part of the reason why this recut of Rocky 4 exists is to sort of
Robot erasure.
robot erasure, obviously, right? Because we're fighting a war against artificial intelligence here in 2021, but also because Sylvester Stallone has kind of said that he felt that killing off Apollo was a mistake, and that he's in this recut. The thing that they're really trying hard to accomplish is that he's trying to like
humanize.
give
Drago.
more, like, because in Creed there's a lot of talk about how close Rocky and Apollo were, and how much like their friendship was really more of like they were so close that they were like brothers. And you kind of, in the original cut of Rocky 4, like all that, like a lot of that gets left behind for like the jingoism and fucking montages of Rocky training and driving a car.
Oh my
which we really needed. But the like that's the I like the original cut as a movie more than the recut, but I appreciate what the recut is trying to do, and there's some really good scenes in there, like specifically like Duke and Rocky's eulogy at Apollo's funeral.
Yep.
I thought that those scenes were
the re-edit.
But the thing is, like, some of that stuff you could have dropped right into the original and just added like 5 to 10 minutes to that and just made it a better movie without cutting a lot of the fun stuff or a lot of the connective tissue that makes the recut seem like an ADHD fucking nightmare of kind of nonsense at times.
Both you and Ethan, I feel like, have said that, and I feel the opposite way. I feel like the original is a fucking ADHD nightmare. Like
they both are. They both are.
The original movie, like, to me, the original film, I was watching it. I had not watched this movie since probably not very long after it came out. Like, I was little the last time I saw Rocky 4.
You didn't watch this movie 1,000 times on TNT throughout the late 90s and early 2000s?
I was watching Erga Music War.
Yeah, it was, yes, that's true.
I've seen all of these Rocky movies, like especially 3 and 4, like 1,000 times, because they were
movies for
TNT,
guys who like movies.
And yeah, they were on constantly. Like, and then they would always do. Was it the 4th of July where they would do the thing where they would play all of them back to back for like the whole day?
Right. Yeah. No, I really didn't. I mean, I probably watched the end fight I've seen more times than the whole movie. But the last time I sat down and watched this whole movie, I was like a kid. And watching it now, like, the 2 notes that I have that best indicate my takeaway are like that this movie feels like it was edited by like a small woodland rodent with ADHD who has just done a whole 8-ball, like, all at once. And the other note I have is just montage the movie. Like,
well, I'd like to say before Ethan has a chance that there's a definite irony to a film about defeating the Soviet Empire containing this much montage. That was for all the film nerds out there.
Nice, very nice.
That takes me back.
Yeah,
I feel like what we should do is we can't be going scene by scene through Rocky 4 because there's like 6 scenes and then it's an hour and a half of montages. I guess the whole thing's an hour and a half.
Literally is like the last 45 minutes of the movie is like a 5-minute montage, and then there's a short little scene, and then there's another montage, and
there's the driving montage, there's the training montage, there's the training montage 2, and then the fight is round 1 and 2, and then a montage.
Really important. Do you guys like the the training montage or the sequel to the training montage more?
My favorite thing, so I like the sequel to the training montage, but my favorite part about all of that is the two training montages are separated by Adrian going to Russia, and she has like she exchanges like 3 lines with Rocky, and then they go right back into into training montage too. It's so ridiculous, like
yeah, and that's the same in the. I think that we should go through the movie. Not scene by scene, but like, well, I guess maybe that's what I.
This is if you want to learn the 3-act structure, this is a perfect movie to explain it, because the original cut of Rocky IV is Russian decides he's going to be a boxer and wants an exhibition with Rocky, and Apollo takes it, and then Apollo fights him and gets killed. Act 2, Rocky struggles with taking the fight and takes the fight and trains. And then all of Act 3 is the fight. Like, that's the whole movie. So I think
this movie and Rocky 3 are structured exactly the same way. They're basically the exact same plot, except in one Mickey dies and in one Apollo dies.
Well, and also, right. And and Rocky loses a fight in 3. He loses to Clubber Lang,
right,
and then trains.
In 4, he just has to give up the belt.
Right. And so there's a couple things about this from a boxing perspective that I found interesting, which, one, I understand that, like, obviously the way, like, the whole premise of when people talk about the Miracle on Ice was that, like, in the 80s and before, during the Cold War, communist countries didn't have professional athletes. Everyone was an amateur, which is why the Russian hockey team in 1980 was basically a pro team, and why it was a miracle that a bunch of, like, scrappy American college kids beat them in the semifinals in the Olympics, because...
We didn't like those, so we changed the rules so professionals can just do it now.
Right. One of my favorite Onion articles, by the way, still to this day, is IOC clears pros for Olympic wrestling, which is just fantastic. But the idea that an amateur boxer with no record would just be like, I want to fight the world champion, and like that would happen. There's like, that's one of the things I actually liked about the recut, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the recut actually has a scene with the boxing commissioner where they're like, absolutely fucking not, dude. No way.
They say no. I did know. I was confused by that scene so yesterday I watched the recut, and then just kind of to make sense of it, I watched about a half hour, 40 minutes of the original cut, and I was trying to figure out how much faster the recut was moving through the first 30, 40 minutes than the original.
It's like 10
I was using that scene as like my mark. And I realized that
it's not in the movie.
The line he says he's had one professional fight and one man is dead, and that's in the trailer for Rocky IV, but it's not in the movie. So I was sure that scene that I had seen it before, but obviously
also if it's an exhibition, that doesn't actually count as like that wouldn't be on his professional record because it was an exhibition fight, not an actual match. But the idea that like that's like if Logan Paul, who's been doing all these fucking antics with his, like, he's boxing all these fucking schlubs and trying to act like it means something. Like if he was like, I want to box the Gypsy King, you know, like the WBC is not going to be like, oh yeah, you can fight Tyson Fury. Like there's no fucking way. Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. And the other thing that I found really funny is that it's clear that this movie came out right before Mike Tyson became a huge, like, nationwide boxing star, because the thing they keep talking about, especially in the original cut, is how much taller and bigger the Russian is than Rocky. And it's like, this is clearly because if Mike Tyson was the hottest thing in the boxing world when they were making this movie, there would have been something in there about how the height advantage doesn't mean that much. Because Mike Tyson, for those who aren't, like, super into boxing, is only 6 feet tall. And
they'd be talking about, look how short he is and look how mentally ill he is.
I mean, that's more
look how many pigeons he has.
They kind of do that in Rocky 3.
Yeah.
Because Mr. T is more like Rocky sized. Although one of the problems with that movie is that Rocky only loses the first fight because he's distracted because Mickey just died, but
right.
Or he's worried about Mickey. But I mean, well, Mike Tyson does have like abnormally long arms, though.
I mean, he does, but also they're like the idea that a guy who is short is automatically at some, like, super lopsided disadvantage to a guy who, like, Tyson fought guys who were 6'6" and beat their asses in the 80s, you know?
Right.
Um,
I mean, that's part of how
Completely
Rocky
get it.
beats Apollo Creed is that he gets inside him and
right.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
basically
did not actually watch the original Rocky 4 for this. I had to rely on my sense memories, but like I didn't think the cut was bad, and I'm not like where I think it ruins the film, but like it is just funny to me that the whole idea behind the cut seems to be like a less kitschy version of Rocky 4, and like that's like a less wet version of water. Like
Yeah.
what was like the idea
I
of
mean,
this? Like where do you think you're exactly?
it's so like Stallone himself talks about in some of this stuff. I didn't watch that whole hour and a half documentary that's on YouTube, but I did watch some stuff of him talking about it, and he talks about how like he feels like it was edited like a music video, basically, and watching.
I mean,
like,
it's because it's literally like 5 fucking music videos stuck together. It comprises the entire middle of the movie, right?
He thinks that the original cut was edited like a music video.
Yes.
I see. Yeah, that's what this boggles my mind. Because I thought that unambiguously the new cut was more like that, more just. Yeah. There's a scene where we're establishing context and like telling some story. Slam through it. Let's get to the next scene. And they left all like the Journey songs in. Like they left the double training montage in.
Yeah, double training.
I mean,
montage.
You got to think. There's a certain point where he didn't have the footage to make a movie that took a breath.
I was honestly shocked that the whole driving montage was left in.
I mean, why would you?
It was
mess
left
with
in
perfection?
But they also did this like bizarre color grading to it, so it looked like fucking shit.
Yeah.
All right, here's my real question for those of you that watch both cuts. Is the scene of Apollo Creed playing with a pool full of golden retrievers?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It is.
Is it?
Because I was quite impressed.
It's the very first scene after the fucking 7-minute recap of Rocky 3.
Yeah, he made that recap way longer in the recap.
Agonizing.
No reason.
Long.
And then they cut the best part of Rocky 3, which is the secret Apollo Creed.
Happy birthday, Polly. Oh no, that's right. That's the best part of Rocky 4. Sorry.
Right, that's the best part of Rocky 4, which they cut out of the movie, which sucks. But they cut the best part of Rocky 3, which is the secret Creed Rocky fight that that nobody's supposed to know about, right?
Yeah.
They end. That's the end note of the original Rocky 4 opening, and then that's not even in the new cut. I don't know why that is, because that's like one of the best parts of that movie, I think.
And going back to when I'm saying that, Creed was a film where Stallone became newly humble, like that's a perfect example, because any script that Stallone is going to write, there's no way that he's admitting that he lost 2 out of 3 fights to Carl Weathers. And instead, he has this really kind of lovable moment where the Creed comes in and like starts talking with him, starts asking like questions he shouldn't be able to ask. And then he just asks, once he's established that he's actually his son, he goes like, "So who won that fight?" And like without hesitation and in a very humble way, he just goes, "He did." And like that's a beautiful moment, and it's like a perfect character moment. And there's no way in hell Sylvester Stallone writes that moment for himself or is willing to perform that moment for like most directors. So like Creed is like fucking fantastic. It's a miracle. I'm gonna be saying that periodically.
Yeah. So So I'm sorry. We should talk about the original cut before we get like ass deep in the recut, because the context.
I mean, I think we can jump back and forth, sort of.
But I think so. The original cut it's a very brief recap of Rocky 3. It plays Eye of the Tiger right at the opening, which that's a thing that I actually like, that they moved Eye of the Tiger to the end of the fight with Drago. And instead of playing Hearts on Fire a second time after the fight with Drago.
Well, they in this movie, they kind of like Eye of the Tiger becomes Apollo Creed's sort of wrestling theme. So when he's trying to like,
I thought Living in America by James Brown was his wrestling theme.
Man, that's the best part of this.
And if we're going to talk about Living in America,
the actual best part of this movie is the Living in America music video. How many music videos are in this movie? So there's Living in America.
There's the Drive. I forgot what
No Easy Way Out. Hearts on Fire.
Hearts on Fire. That's
and the non-lyrical music for the first training montage. So it's 5 music videos, right? Did I miss any?
Are we talking about Living
in
the
original cut?
Right
I guess there's also the part where the robot is playing music and flirting with Paulie, which is maybe the opening to an awesome music video that actually did make it into the movie. But
I would like to point out that Living in America starts with Carl Weathers riding in a giant statue of Moloch while James Brown sings about how happy he is to be able to drive. All I want to say about that sequence is that Stallone really showed himself as the director of Staying Alive during those like perfect 5 minutes. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fair. So the original movie has a lot more. Again, I feel like it moves at a breakneck pace. Apollo sees the Russian on TV. It opens with this montage of the Russian doing. He hits at 1,800 pounds per square inch, which is like double what the average boxer punches at. Also, before I forget, this doesn't happen till later in the movie, but he injects himself with steroids, or gets injected with steroids at one point, and usually
they cut that out.
Usually, you don't put those in your arm. I'm just gonna say, everybody I ever knew who did steroids when I was in the wrestling world, everybody shoots them in their ass. So.
It's also worth pointing out that it's clear the reason why the whole angle of is he doing steroids or not is removed from the recut, which is like if you look at Stallone's body in Rambo 4, it's he's not clowning on steroids anymore.
No, he's made out of plastic. I feel like we covered this in the first run of the Action Cast. He's turning into a literal action figure.
Yeah.
By that point,
I believe he's actually a living tree stump made out of HGH. So.
That's possible. That is possible.
He's just like those Stretch Armstrong dolls that were filled with like corn syrup. He's like a rubber suit filled with corn syrup, animated by a robo skeleton. Yeah,
sounds about right. Yeah. But so once Creed sees the evil Russian on TV that he wants an exhibition match with Rocky, which again would never happen. He decides he wants to take the exhibition match, even though like basically Rocky 3 established that he's washed, right? Like he's 5 years out of professional boxing, and like this was before George Foreman won the world title at 45 on a lucky punch. So it was pretty, any boxer at that age, the age he's supposed to be, even though I don't think him and Sylvester Stallone are actually that far apart in age and reality, but he's playing older than Stallone.
Right.
Like he's washed. So the idea that he would want to fight a 21-year-old Russian who is built like a brick shithouse. Not that Carl Weathers wasn't also built like a brick shithouse, but I mean, come on, dude. And so everybody basically
this is important, Joe.
Yeah, right.
This is a bigger than you and me.
Right. Yeah. So that's the whole thing is Rocky doesn't think he should
this
do
is
it.
About
Adrian
the interstate system.
I think one of the
things about the interstate system, like
right, of course.
James Brown told us so.
That's right. Yeah. I think one of the things that I do like about the other cut, and maybe I don't know, Ethan, I don't know if you have any kind things to say about the new cut, but Adrian gets a lot more to do. I mean, she still doesn't have a lot to do, but the whole dinner scene where she's trying to talk Apollo out of it and sort of is actually the one making the points while Rocky just kind of sits there dumbfounded. I liked that versus the original version of that scene. And the whole scene where like in the original, like Paulie gets the robot for his birthday.
Right.
Fucking robot.
That's the first, yeah, it's like I think
that scene, I'm prepared to argue that scene it has a purpose.
It's great. The two things.
Purpose,
the purpose,
Comedy
first
relief.
of all, the purpose is so that the world could be gifted. Happy birthday, Polly. But secondly, the purpose is like we're visiting Rocky. I don't know how many years was it between Rocky 3 and 4. I'm actually not sure. Like 3 years, something like that.
3 or 4.
Yeah, 82 to 85, so 3 years.
Like Rocky at this, Rocky and Apollo at this point are sort of like neither of them have the eye of the tiger anymore. Like Rocky is so out of touch, he's out of touch with his own brother-in-law, and like we relate in that scene to God, what's his name? His brother-in-law.
Or Burt Young.
Paulie?
Burt Young. Yeah, Paulie.
Yeah, happy birthday, Polly.
Yeah,
We were
come on.
late with Polly because this stupid ass robot comes in, and Polly's like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah, but then like
And,
4
that's
scenes
how we
later, he's
feel.
acting like it's his wife. So
He's
like,
gonna
and it's
right,
like
trying to figure out
nagging
where to
him when he goes to Russia.
when he buys a silicone sleeve to plug into the back of that thing.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I think we should all pour one on the curb for Polly's robot.
But
on
I
this
think
weekend in
we
Greece.
start the movie. We see Rocky. He's acting a fool with his family. He's like, he's like not the serious fighter he was
he's
when he
still the
won the
world
fight at the end of the third
champion.
movie. Yeah, sure, whatever. The movie sucks. I'm not saying the movie's good, but I think
He's
that's
fighting
the
a bunch of
purpose.
tomato cans again, like he was in Rocky
Yeah.
3.
I
And
just
then
wanna
we
point
cut
out that
to
the very first
Apollo.
very first note that I have for this movie is Ethan will have nothing to say about this film. So
we go to Apollo then, and Apollo. I don't think politically the movies are that interesting, honestly, which is a really shame. But actually that's not true. We'll wait until we get to the ending. But and then you see Apollo immediately after you see Rocky gifting his brother-in-law this stupid ass robot. And he's playing in this massive pool with these dogs. Like we kind of established that both of these guys are like, at this moment in the story, neither of these guys is up to a serious challenge. And then in the original cut, before if I'm not mistaken, the first we see of Drago in the recut is Apollo sees it on TV, and then I think we kind of like cut into the scene as he's watching it on TV.
It's the same. The introduction is the same. It just takes place a little longer.
Yeah,
after the robot stuff in the
original cut, we as the audience are not with Apollo in this pool watching this on TV. In the original cut, we're in that press room and we see a more. I think there's a scene with more development in there
of it.
Yeah, including what I thought was some really good bits of context and story. Like, first of all, this is not like essential to the movie, but they tell you how many foot-pounds Drago's punch is in both cuts, but in the recut, you have no context for knowing what that means because it's like, is this 10% higher than normal boxer? No, it's more like they make it clear that it's more than double. And then they also have what I thought it was surprising, the idea that maybe one of his goals was humanizing Drago more, because I thought that one of the moments that did that in the original cut is Bridget Nielsen fields a question from a reporter about basically how is he this strong if he's not on steroids, and she says some cheeky thing about how he eats his spinach, but then you see Drago's face, and like it's a really well played scene on Dolph Lundgren's part. Like you see the twinge of shame and like a shift of his eyes, but it's not overplayed, like,
Right.
Yeah, I think he overdoes that, some of that stuff in the recut. I also think that those are kind of the three goals of the recut, is to kind of like give Drago those are the four goals of the recut, are to give Drago like more agency, give Adrian more agency, emphasize the relationship between Rocky and Apollo, and then the other big one, and the reason why I think more than just the embarrassment of the stupidity and the kitschiness of the robot, is that like in all of the scenes in the original cut between Rocky and his son, like his relationship is great. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense that you get from the original cut of Rocky 4 to the stuff that takes place in Rocky 5 and Balboa and the Creed movies, where their relationship is so bad, because like the first thing that happens after you get past the intro of Rocky 4 in the original cut is that his son is like waiting for him on the steps with a camera when he pulls up to the house, right? Yeah. And then it's all about him hanging out and being cool with his kid, and you don't really see. And I think that's the reason why all that stuff gets edited out, is because he doesn't want Rocky to be a good family man. He wants him to be kind of a shitty dad. And then you see that later in the recut. There's a scene that he added in where he's talking to his son and telling his son that you got to do it for yourself, because you only got to live with yourself.
That like, scene is in there, but that line, like, it's longer.
It's not.
It's longer in the
right.
recut.
And so then you can take that that's the seed that kind of makes Rocky's son turn on him in the later movies, right? Like he's using this recut of 4 to like sort of have more connective tissue between all of the films and make the continuity a little smoother. But I think it's, for me, it was definitely at the expense of, like, the reason I like Rocky 4 is because it's so freaking stupid, and when you try to make it less stupid, it becomes like a less good movie, because it's still not a good movie.
Right.
No, it's
with
still,
the recut, right?
I think at the same time, like just like everything else in the Rocky film, like I think the son stuff is like fascinating, and like fatherhood is on my mind, these days, and you do have to wonder if going back and kind of rewriting these scenes is how things, I don't mean this in a cheap or tawdry way, but is how things ended up with Sage Stallone. Obviously, tragically died quite young, and that has to weigh on him.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up and just say, like, we've talked about Sage Stallone years ago. When he died, we talked about him at length, actually, on this shit during the original run of this thing that we do. But pour one out again for Sage Stallone, because he...
But I think that's an interesting thing in Balboa, and I think Milo actually is one of the better parts of Rocky Balboa, which, as I said, is not a good film, but is this idea that the grand gesture or whatever is not going to fix your relationship, and I kind of like the way that plays out in Creed. This sense where he's not really holding on to this bitterness anymore, but he's just kind of accepted that he's not going to have a close relationship with his son. And then, like I said, it pays off in that very last scene of Creed 2, and in a way that like absolutely gets to me. Not even gonna lie about that.
Yeah. It is extremely cheesy, but it's like the good kind of cheese that you want in that kind of movie. It works in Creed. It's definitely one of the things that works the best in Creed 2.
Yeah, it's a little schmaltzy, but it works.
We stopped in the pool with the dogs.
They are excellent dogs. Carl Weathers, Apollo has excellent taste.
Yeah, I wanna hang out with those dogs in that pool, man. Yeah. Seems like a good time.
Two golden retrievers were not enough. You have to have
three golden retrievers.
There was 3. Yeah.
There's 3 of them.
2 in the pool, 1 on the deck.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
That's why he wants to live in America.
So I mean, I guess again, Ethan, like I don't know what your read on it was, but I feel like going from that to the scene where they're on the lawn and they have the sort of longer the quiet conversation about fighting the Russian and everything like that. Right. I don't know. That felt better to me than just like him being at the dinner table and being like, I'm going to fight the Russian. And, Sly being like, I don't know, that doesn't sound like a good idea. And then Apollo just being like, no, man, because I got to like do it for America.
When I watched that lawn scene in the recut, I was disoriented because the movie, so you see this very long recap including both fights from Rocky 3, and then you see this bizarre little sideways title crawl where you're reading both lines at once, and then it's immediately just giant swimming pool.
All right, so the title sequence, I will say, is much poorer. You don't get the hammer and sickle, stars and stripes, boxing gloves exploding.
Oh man, it's so good.
Against each other.
Love that.
That's bogus for sure. The title sequence loses.
So Joe, the context for that comes in a scene that happens later in Rocky 4, but is cut from the recut, where there's a scene right before the fight where Rocky and Apollo are hanging out in the locker room, and I don't think that's in the recut at all. And that conversation is basically where Creed sort of explains his motivation a little bit more, but he's a little. One of the things that I don't like about the recut is that Creed is basically saying like, this is bigger than us. And like he makes the subtext of the conversation from the locker room just the text in that version. And I like the one in the locker room more, because in the locker room, he tells like Rocky's like, I don't understand why you have to do that. And Creed just looks at him, because you have to remember that like Rocky, especially in the first 2 movies, Rocky's a fucking moron. Like that's an important intrinsic part of his character.
Right.
And Apollo Creed is like, he's like a genius marketer, right? Like he is the analog to Muhammad Ali. He's a brilliant person, right? He's not just like the best boxer that ever lived. He's like a brilliant marketing person, and he's somebody with like a deep understanding of like how to market a fight. He tells Rocky in that scene that you don't understand, but maybe you will when it's over. Like that's the line that he says. And I think that that's a better, more subtle way to approach that than the way they do it in the recut, where it's just like he just like teleports into Rocky's backyard and then he's like telling him why he wants to fight Drago in no uncertain terms. And I just like, that's the kind of like very obvious kind of like thing that I don't like as much.
I think Stallone, and of course this was true of whoever edited the original fourth movie as well, but Stallone like very self-consciously, or not, kind of like he didn't hide enough that the first 20 minutes of the recut are edited by somebody who knows that Apollo is about to die. Like there's a much more like naturalistic and kind of like, 70s and 80s movie pace to everything that happens basically right up until Living in America in the original cut. Like Apollo is not entirely taking it seriously. Even the way they recut the press conference, which is where they, he and Drago get in each other's face. Right. Like they cut it in a much more tense way in the remake. So it seems like Apollo is like really worked up, that he's not just like turning it on. Like in the original cut, it's clear that like everyone thinks that this is a fun big money exhibition fight except the Russians.
Right.
Which is
Apollo's
more
trash
accurate,
talk is meant to sell the thing, right? He's having fun being the Apollo Creed character, which he hasn't gotten to do in a long time. Like that's how I read it.
The moment, like, he doesn't realize that, none of the characters realize that in the original cut until the moment where Apollo tries to hit Drago's gloves, and then they like really like punch in that sound effect of
this is a real
his gloves
fight.
not moving.
Well, that's another thing that, I mean, again, we've talked. This isn't a good movie.
I'm just gonna say I think that's super insightful.
I mean, I agree. I agree with that. That's you might be convincing me a little bit here, Ethan. That is very insightful. But one thing that bothers me in both cuts, and like this is just this is how movies are, and it's done to increase the tension. But like I don't follow boxing super closely anymore, but when I was younger, I did follow it fairly closely. My dad watched a lot of boxing, ordered like a lot of the pay-per-views. We used to talk about boxing a lot, and like the idea that someone would be getting brutalized that way in an exhibition match and that the ref wouldn't stop it is like, forget about Rocky throwing in the towel. The ref would have just been like, nope, this is especially after the late hit from Drago.
I was just going to say, this is an important question that I have for you, Joe, is what do you think about that ref bump, right? It's like, it doesn't matter if Rocky throws the towel in, because when Drago kills Creed, the ref has tried to stop him, and he's pushed the ref down and is punching him after the bell. Like it's not like Drago is gonna like disrespect the ref and bump the ref and then see the towel go down and go like, oh, my bad, guys, I'm gonna stop now.
I mean, I'm not saying you guys are wrong, but I'm just saying we've let stupider shit go for suspension of disbelief.
Well, but those movies,
I wanted Joe's take on the ref bump. Do you think that was a good idea?
Yeah, no, I think I like the ref. I mean, the ref is dead forever because he got because he got bumped one time. He'll never recover from that.
I've watched so much pro wrestling, I didn't even notice the ref bump.
I would like the honorary title that we no longer do for this episode to be "The Ref is Dead Forever."
Yeah.
We never see him again.
Yeah, so
2 murders, 2 manslaughters took place that day.
But I think
we talk about how
for me, just to defend my being rankled about that, I think context is important when it comes to like whether you accept these things or like some movies don't make a big deal out of it, but this is a movie that tries to be taken seriously as a sports movie and is like, it's an exhibition match. It's not for the title. It's this, it's that, it's blah, blah, blah. Like it's just, and so then to be like, he bumps the ref in a boxing match and the ref doesn't like just throw it out. Cause again, exhibition matches, like if anybody looks like they're going to be seriously hurt, they're just going to stop it. Cause it doesn't mean anything, Right. And that's what I liked more about Creed 2. Again, not to get ahead of ourselves, but in Creed 2, Victor gets disqualified because he hits Apollo or Adonis when he's down.
Right.
And you can't do that. And so in that movie, it's like, nope, that's it. Like fight's over. You can't hit someone when they're on their knees, dude. Like, can't do that, period. Which I thought was a really good way to get around Adonis losing the title to him. Like, because I was like, well, because when I was watching that movie, I was like, are they going to do like a split decision where the Russians like, this is bullshit, I beat him, but the judges were like pro USA, or
that is
was
like
it
that
going to be a
movie
draw or something? And then they're like, oh no, he gets DQ'd for hitting him once down.
And like that movie is borrowing heavily from professional wrestling booking.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that is like 90% of the professional wrestling angles over the last 30 years, right? That's what happens.
That's like I didn't take notes in Creed 2, but like the main thing that I was thinking through that entire movie is that both of those fights were like the kind of the first 4 Rocky movies are sort of like simulated, hammed up boxing matches. But in Creed 2, it is very obvious that those people had watched more wrestling than boxing. Which is fine,
but the boxing actually looks more authentic.
In all fairness, I think Michael B.
Well, it looks more authentic, except everyone gets concussed many more times than in a real boxing match, I feel like.
Yeah, I actually think that in Creed 2 specifically, it's shot, there's a lot of like behind the back shots, and it feels like playing Super Punch-Out. Like that's what that movie looks like to me, especially with all the throwing and extracurriculars.
Right.
What the fuck? I cannot say that word.
Knowing a little bit about Michael B. Jordan's interests, I think DBZ was a much bigger influence than professional reference.
Same thing.
Dragon Ball Z is
things are exactly
professional
the same.
wrestling.
Right.
Yeah.
Anime is wrestling. Wrestling is anime.
And sometimes they cross paths, and you get Kenny Omega trying to beat up Tiger Mask W over like a pot of ramen or whatever the hell it was.
It's amazing.
But I don't want to get too into Creed 2 right now, but I just that some of that stuff, it did like niggle at me a little bit, where I was just like, what the hell? Like, this is not like, they're trying to play this off like it's a serious sports movie, and then they're doing shit that would never happen.
Bigger than just
boxing.
a boxing match, man.
Bigger than just a boxing match, right? Although I think that's
before we continue.
I think that's a good moment in the even both cuts. Like, I think that is like Eric was saying, Stallone said he wanted to humanize Drago a little bit more, but I think the way that Drago is kind of like a deer in headlights when he's getting raised up on the ring platform in the original cut, while Apollo's dancing to James Brown, and there's these dancing girls, and there's all this stuff, like his sort of reaction to that kind of makes you I think humanizes him in a way where he's not this like emotionless killing machine. He's being put in this position by sort of the Soviet state apparatus who wants to make him into a symbol of, whatever, Soviet greatness. And he's just like totally out of his element in that moment. And I think like even in the original, that's a good humanizing moment for Drago.
I agree. I also think that's insightful, and I have nothing to add except to underline once again how sublimely ridiculous the whole "Living in America" sequence is. Because, dear fucking God,
it's so good.
He literally comes riding on a golden calf because Sylvester Stallone wants to murder subtly in sleep. Subtly in sleep, like it's just chef's kiss.
Yeah, Yep.
It's just dancing girls, golden calf. James Brown singing about how much he loves the interstate and how it makes up for centuries of racial injustice, that we can just drive anywhere we want at any time because that's what living in America is, baby. And like, it is a fever dream does not cover it. Like, you cannot explain just how Jordowski has not created 5 minutes of sustained surrealism as well as the Living in America sequence. Either cut of Rocky 4. So I just fucking love it.
Sure. I feel like Ethan was going to say something and I kind of stepped on him. What were you going to say, Ethan?
Or we were stepping on each other. I was going to say we skipped one thing that really irked me about the new cut, which is it's the scene immediately before. Basically, it's the ending of the press conference scene, which I think is like in both movies, just because there was nothing really to put in between these. I believe we go straight from that press conference to the deer in the headlights Drago with the ceiling opening up.
In the original, there's the locker room conversation, and then that.
Oh, okay.
But that gets cut in the recut because they have that conversation in the yard instead. But Anyway.
Oh,
go
the
ahead.
one. Okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
one's in between.
Yeah.
We get a much different reason for why the fight. Oh no, I'm sorry, I screwed up. This is the conversation that happens later. Never mind. Let's move on to a different thing that I hated that comes right after that fight. Then, which
I think
One of the
they made
best
it
things-
more clear that he was gonna throw in the towel, which I think.
yeah.
I don't know. You know,
I feel like it was like that in both, though, wasn't it?
I felt like the recut made it really clear that he was literally about to throw it in, whatever,
There's some
no matter
more-
what. And
There's
then
some more
you
chit chat
more of
between them in the
the-
ring
well,
as well. I think like Apollo is more emphatic that he's not to end the match.
Right, and I also felt like in the
He
recut
goes
that
like, yeah, if you're my friend.
yeah.
right. This is also a small thing, but again, like just because some of the sports stuff was bothering me, that I appreciated in the recut. It's more clear, like Creed does this a lot better, is that you can hear what the corner is actually telling the fighter to do. Like in the original cut, I feel like they're just like, no, not that. And in the recut, like Duke and Rocky are both like, get him in a clinch, like get out of the corner, get out of, like, and
I guess, but in the recut, it's edited. Like the sound editing is really bad.
the
in
sound editing
recut.
is weird in the recut for sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
like those things sound like they're coming like from like he re-recorded dialogue in his bathroom or something,
Well,
and then
weird-
like, dropped it in.
The
and it
weird
just sounds
voiceover
weird.
when he fights Drago sounds like it was definitely re-recorded
yeah,
in his
yeah.
bathroom.
Oh no, yeah. He definitely did that as that was like that was a tree trunk thing.
So would you guys confirm or deny? Because one of the interesting things that I read, as like far as differences of the cuts go, is that they actually toned down like the punching sounds in this.
Yeah, they
in
did.
this cut.
Yeah,
like,
Yeah,
especially they did, especially in the Rocky Drago fight. They turned it down quite a bit. It doesn't sound like two cars slamming into each other or whatever. Which
In the original
what-
cut,
what it
there's
sounds like
we
in the
see
original.
more in those moments before Creed is killed. We see more desperation. Like the camera lingers on Duke for longer, screaming
Yeah.
throw in the towel, and something about how like the color grading is different from the original in the new cut. He's like he looks so sweaty in the original cut because like all those shots kind of
Yes.
look brighter. Though he looks like he's just dripping sweat.
Yeah.
Which one of the things that I did like about the recut is that the transfer is amazing. Like,
Yes.
like it looks incredible in terms of the visual detail, except for the parts where I think they fucked up the color.
I was gonna say, except for the parts that looked super fucked up.
Yeah,
I
like
actually- I
it
thought-
was,
I
it was a
thought-
brilliant transfer and a bad color.
Yeah.
color
I
grading.
thought the changing the flashback stuff to black and white and the car montage was fine. Like that didn't really bother me.
Yeah, that was fine. It was more like I don't know. There were a lot of I mean, like in that car scene, and this is just like kind of like it technically
Hold on.
bothers me, but they like
Before we
crushed
move-
the blacks so hard that everything looks
Yeah.
fuzzy and noisy, like it was like a DV movie.
Yes, the blacks were crushed really bad in some of the stuff in the recut. I remember noticing that there was like artifacting in some of the dark spots where I was
Yeah.
like, "What?" I was like, "Is that my TV?" And like,
Yeah, to the point that it was distracting from
Yes.
the story. Yeah.
yes,
Anyway, there's one more very important thing in the Apollo Drago fight that Ethan needs to point out because he brought it up in the email and it drove me fucking crazy also. Which I think you were leading into, and then we.
Yeah, I
like,
think so.
redirected,
You're talking
but-
about the post-fight interviewer
yes, yeah,
and how he's
Which is,
missing
like,
from the recut.
It's the most, yeah, it's like the most famous, best line from this whole movie, and then they like left the line in, but they fucked it up.
Yeah, in the original, the post-fight interviewer is like, "Wow, what an exciting fight! How does it feel to blah blah blah? Apollo Creed. Apollo Creed looks like he might be badly hurt." And then Drago says, "If he dies, he dies." He's like trying to be super hard and cold and answering a question that somebody asked him. And in the
in the recut, it's
in the
just
new
sort
cut,
of-
it's like he's like
just
doing
says
some
it.
kind of like nihilistic poetry apropos of nothing. No one asks him anything.
goth poet Drago.
Yeah.
I would definitely listen to WSU Lundgren's alumni's goth poetry for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not wrong about that either. That also bothered me, where I was like, why did he just set it like apropos of nothing? If he dies, he dies. And I'm like,
I feel like if they were going to do it that way, they should have cut the entire line. Like, because that line, it's a villainous line.
right.
And it's a line that really goes well with that look that he gives to Rocky, like, I'm going to tear your heart out in the, in the original cut, which I think that look is removed from the recut.
I think the look is still there. So here's a weird thing that I actually didn't notice this until I watched someone talking about this cut on YouTube earlier today. I never noticed, and even on this most recent watch, that when they're in the ring before the fight starts, Apollo goes, "You, I want you," and he points at Drago, and he points at him. His gloves are not on, and then the camera cuts away and cuts back, and his gloves are back on. And apparently that's fixed in the I think they just cropped it so you can't see his hand when he says "I want you," but like now you can't see that he's not wearing boxing gloves when he has that one shot.
Thank God they fixed that.
Well, that's super weird, right? And I can't believe I never noticed it. I mean, again, I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but I can't believe I didn't notice it watching it like a week ago, that I didn't notice that his boxing gloves like appear and disappear and reappear.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, I have less of a
The
problem
edits are just
with-
too fucking fast. In the original cut.
Yeah,
I would
right.
prefer like continuity errors like that than like strange breaks from reality, like the missing ring announce or the missing.
I mean, the whole movie is a strange break from reality.
That's true, and even though it seems to our 12 listeners that this is really slow going, we're almost to the end of the point where
movie
we
doesn't
can
have
stop
Jean-Claude.
the movie.
This movie doesn't have Jean-Claude Van Damme, so we're not going to get 50,000 people to
I'm just going to
watch this
say
one.
that I would like to second this whole movie is a strange break from reality as the title that we won't use because I can't let these running gags go. So
That's
alive.
totally understandable. Totally understandable.
That point, I think, at the end of that fight is where I stopped. I like skipped around the original cut a little bit, but the rest of it is I'm going on my memory of the last time I saw it, which is probably like 6 or 7 years ago. But that's
now that we spent an
pretty
hour
close
going over the first 20 to 30 minutes of the Rocky Four.
Well, we
I mean,
talked
all
about
we
the
get
whole
from here on
series.
out-
We did talk about the whole series to begin with.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we get the funeral, which
Yes.
So the
This is
funeral.
a-
This is
the big improvement.
Yes,
between
I was
the
going
two,
to say
the-
that I
the
will.
recut for me.
I will not give ground on this. The funeral is better in the recut, for
they
sure.
I do have to
unfortunately
laugh,
could
though,
not go
'cause-
back and improve Stallone's performance in that scene. but-
In Creed, like he has like this line where he goes like, "Marianne said he gave a nice speech at the funeral." It's like,
No, he didn't.
Like Ryan Coogler have like access to this footage? Question mark. Like
Maybe
Yeah.
you might
I
have.
don't, maybe there was like a deleted scene or something.
say
on
there
the
might have
Rocky
been
IV
the-
DVD
yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that. Because in the original, it's just like Rocky like standing there being silent and awkward, and nobody really says anything.
Well,
And then
Duke
the
says
recut-
like a little. Duke has like
Yeah.
a short version of what he
Yeah.
says in the recut.
And then in the recut, there's like Duke gives a really long speech about Apollo being a warrior and choosing how to live and how to die. And then Rocky gives a nice little speech about like acknowledging that the reason why he is where he is because Apollo gave him that shot. Apollo
Yeah.
gave him the opportunity and how much that meant to him and how he like grew as a person because he realized like what that was and what it meant. And like I said, that is for me the one. This and the Adrian stuff are the two things I think are big improvements in the recut over the original cut.
Yeah. So then after Apollo gets killed, basically Rocky decides he's going to fight the Russian. And in the recut, we get a scene with the boxing commission where they basically go like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Which again is what would happen in real life. Like that is absolutely what would happen.
In the original, they just say that happens. They don't
Yeah.
show it. I don't think you need
Where
to
do
show
they even
it.
say that in the original? I know
I was
that
going to
they
say,
do, but-
they it's like such a
It's when
passing
Rocky
mention.
and Rocky and Adrian are talking about it.
Yeah.
That
And
he says
okay.
they mention it there, but that's all.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
So
But I
they-
don't think you really need that scene. I don't know why that scene is there.
they talk on the stairs. and this is like Adrian's only real like noteworthy moment in the theatrical cut is she talks on the stairs and tells him he can't beat the Russian and he has nothing to prove and all the blah blah blah, and you know I mean, Adrian, but I'm a fighter, I gotta fight.
Yeah. One of the bad things about the series is that Adrian pretty much stops being a character after the first movie. Like, she basically just becomes the one that tells Rocky that fighting so and so for whatever reason is a bad idea. And I do appreciate that this recut attempts to give her some more character and some more agency, but that's still kind of what it comes down to, because there just isn't, you know, there's if it wasn't in the script and shot originally, there's only so much you can do, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, you could do something weird like bring Talia Shire back and try to de-age her, I'm not going to dog.
No, can we listen? The one thing, no matter how you feel about this recut, the fact that it's just a recut and not a fucking George Lucas style bullshit CGI like humping the corpse of the thing, like that like at least whether you like it or not, you can at least respect it for like. The fact that it has some respect for the source material.
So I don't want to get on too big of a digression, but like I thought The Irishman by and large was fantastic, but the de-aging shit in that movie and some of those scenes, I was just like, what the fuck, dude?
How did you feel about Robert De Niro's fucking cyborg glowy eyes throughout a lot of that movie?
So weird, and the part,
and no amount of CGI could make it look good when he was kicking.
That guy. I was just gonna say that's the worst scene in the movie. He's kicking that dude like a 70-year-old man, but he's got the face of a 30-year-old man for some reason.
I'd like to say this about I unabashedly love The Irishman.
I thought it was fantastic, but that shit was out of control.
But I just want to say, like, here, I like just so I'm clear, like, I love the fact that Netflix probably thought that they were buying like a The Departed 2 and instead got a 3-hour meditation, Catholic existential meditation about like the complete futility of worldly power and station in the face of death. And it's really fucking funny. But I did have one of the weirdest experience where I don't really smoke pot anymore, and one night I just happened to have some, and I'm like, oh, I'll put on The Irishman, and like those effects in the early portions, like the 70-year-old man kick, always looked weird. But all of a sudden, all the aging defects looked really fucking weird, and I could not stop watching it. And it was the weirdest movie watching experience of like my last little bit.
And the other one that I think of is that I appreciated what they were going for, but in Star Wars Rogue One, which is like one of my favorite Star Wars things of the Disney era, like I like that movie quite a bit, but the fact that they digitally put Peter Cushing's face on some other guy, I was like, why not? Like, if you're gonna have that character in the movie, you can still have an actor who does like a pretty good Peter Cushing voice, and just like we get it, we'll understand. You don't have to digitally glue Peter Cushing's face onto someone and have it look creepy as hell. Like, I'll understand that it's the same character. It's okay. That was even worse than the shit in The Irishman, but the Irishman was still a great. I mean, I still liked it a lot. I don't know, it's not on the level for me with, you know, Goodfellas or Casino or even speaking of Catholic meditations on futility. I loved it and I can't remember what it's called. What was the one about the Japanese missionaries, Bryce?
Silence.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
Great movie.
That was it. And I feel like I'm
not going to say how I feel about The Irishman because I don't want to get into a whole thing about it. But
you're allowed to say you don't like it without us. Yeah.
We only have one more scene that's synopsized. It's synopsizable a word. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. So he talks to Adrian on the stairs, and then the driving the driving montage.
No easy way out montage.
And this is where the movie becomes montage. Like it's edited like a montage through this moment, to be sure, no matter what. But this is the moment where basically the rest of the movie is several montages interlinked by like 1.5 minute scenes. And I thought the recut would do more to change that, but it really doesn't.
Yeah, it does
Oh, you
nothing at
don't-
all. But
you
there
don't
is one scene,
Fucking
and this
mess
is the
with
one I was.
perfection, all right, Joe.
This is
I-
the one thing that I was saying that I hated is the one scene that's like more than 30 seconds to a minute long that we get basically until the fight is the second press conference where they change for some reason. Like, if his idea was to kind of like tone down the jingoism in the original cut. Bridget Nielsen is clear that the reason why why they're only holding it in Russia and they refuse to hold it in the U.S. is that basically like the U.S. media and the fans had been like openly hostile toward Drago and they didn't want to subject him to danger. In the recut, that's gone. Like Bridget Nielsen doesn't even speak in that scene for some reason, and instead we just get the I don't know who he is, like the boxing trainer, I guess.
Their commissar or whatever the fuck
Yeah,
he is.
yeah, like
You mean
barking
Comrade
some-
Big Mouth?
Yes,
I think
Comrade
that's-
Big
I believe
Mouth.
that's
some
his
stuff that
official
makes
name.
no
Yeah.
sense about how if they hold it in the U.S. then it won't be judged fairly anyway. But he's like so fired up when he delivers that it's clear that those were lines that they shot, like those were supposed to come later in that conversation. So by putting those earlier and removing that earlier reason, it just makes it sound like he's just like exploding with Soviet rage instantly. Like he's just like short fuse. Like it makes him seem more villainous,
Yeah.
which I did not like. I
would
thought that
just-
the reasoning before made sense.
Well,
I
it
just wanna
made
point
sense
out-
as like a bogus reason why they would insist on doing it that way, but also like the boxing commission is clear that they don't want to have it in the U.S. anyways. So, I mean, I don't know. Go ahead,
This
Bryce.
is going to be, I feel like, one of the last things that I have to say about this movie. So I just want to point out that I was like joking earlier that Living in America has lyrics that are just completely off point. It is once again a hype song about how much Apollo Creed and James Brown love the interstate system and how much they love to drive from place to place. But then to correct for this, every song from this point on becomes like the most punishing literal song that you can have. And that begins with like No Easy Way Out. That's literally like, oh, you're feeling depressed and dispirited that your best friend died, and it like stays in that vein.
Yeah,
It's,
right.
it's like that
It is,
scene in
yes.
Basketball. Where,
Basketball.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
literally what I think Bryce was referencing there. Yeah.
Yeah, you got some yellow crumbs on your upper lip. Like it's like it's uber specific to the situation. Hearts on Fire is the exact same way. Also, by the way, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but since we're talking about the soundtrack, Eric, were you disappointed that Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zukov were not on hand to sing the Russian national anthem?
They should have been part of Drago's team, I think.
Yeah, to come out and
That would've
sing the national
I mean, if you could
anthem
get
before
Hulk
the
Hogan
fight.
in Rocky 3, then why not get famous evil Russian wrestlers for Rocky 4?
Yeah, exactly. So, fun fact, I again don't want to digress too much, but it's really funny that the reason that Hulk Hogan left the AWA and ended up going to Vince is because Vern didn't want him to do Rocky 3. And like wasn't going to let him do it. So that's why he left the AWA and then ended up going to Vince. So, or part of the reason, not the whole reason, but part of the reason. So, whoops, Vern.
Not a smart guy in his
dude.
last 20 years of life.
He was so out of touch. Well, his last 20 years of life, he lived to be really old, but I would say not in his last 20 years of running a wrestling promotion.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was super out of touch by that point. If you ever get the chance, Eric and I talked about it on a podcast we guest on regularly called Wrestling with the Dog. But if you can find, it's on WWE Network. I don't know if they've moved it onto Peacock or not, but the pilot episode of the Team Challenge series.
Oh yeah. Oh dear Lord.
Which involves guys walking down green screen ramps that have.
I have those. I still have those gifts from that. That's an incredible piece of errata. Oh man, I love that stuff. What an incredible TV show.
Yeah, if you want to see Vern Gagne at his most out of touch, perhaps that's something to check out. Hit the button, Greg. Sorry, punch the button. Punch the button, Greg.
Punch the button. Yeah.
Anyways, so we're in Montage Town now, and
And we're gonna be here for.
We're gonna be here for the second half of the movie.
Get a nice hotel because we're gonna spend most of the rest of this movie in Montage Town.
So it's again, I think I was expecting that there would be kind of more changes throughout the whole film, but like really the new cut, the vast majority of the changes, especially the more noticeable ones, are in the front half of this film. And once Rocky gets in his Lambo and goes for a drive to be pensive and thoughtful, the movie is mostly the same from that point on. Like Ethan said, there's some changes in some of the dialogue a little bit, but it's largely the same film from that point on. And so he says he's going to go to the fight is on Christmas, which is why we're doing this in December, 5 days before Christmas. The fight will be on Christmas in Soviet Russia, and he's going to train in Soviet Russia so he can not have his mind on anything else but training. And they put 2 KGB agents there to follow him wherever he goes because they think that in the middle of like wherever the hell, like bumfuck Egypt, Siberia, that he's training, that he's going to like find out some important state secrets and pass them to the CIA or something. But the training montage is actually one of the finer, in my opinion. Montage 1 and Montage 2, Training Montage 1 and Training Montage 2, are some of the better sports training montages in film history, honestly. Like, if this movie does anything right, it does a good sports training montage.
All of the Rockies have the best one is Rocky 3, obviously.
Well, because it has Apollo and
yeah, I mean, but also like the song and everything, like everything about that is the perfect training montage.
All
the Rocky movies have
stick
really
up
good
for
training.
the OG original training montage, but
It's
yes,
great.
Well,
Hearts on Fire, it's some fantastic montage.
Well, the sort of the juxtaposition of Rocky like pushing a sled with Paulie on it, or pulling a sled with Paulie on it, and
it's a logical
that
escalation.
One particular exercise that he does looks like every time he does it, it would dislocate his shoulders. It looks so painful. Like, why would you
just
do that?
Jogging to the top of a mountain to scream Drago's name.
Yeah, that's what one of my notes says. Fuck.
Totally no erotic way.
Fuck stairs. We're going up a mountain this time.
I mean, just the fact that Sylvester Stallone is out in the middle of. He's in the middle of Siberia in the dead of winter wearing a leather jacket and jeans.
As you do.
Hey!
Hey!
As someone who lives in like way more moderate weather conditions in the wintertime and spends a considerable amount of time outside, let me tell you, he's fucking dead. All right? Like, he doesn't survive that. Nobody survives that.
I would just like to remind everybody and our 12 listeners that Stallone wanted to end Rocky 3 originally with Rocky being beaten to death in the Coliseum. So, like, let us never forget that Sylvester Stallone is a complete fucking madman.
True.
I mean, I would have made Rocky 3 better by just making it about Mr. T instead of making it about Rocky, but that's another way to improve it, I suppose. Anyways, so yeah, and then, I don't know, there's a whole half an hour fight sequence.
I mean, I gotta say, I respect this movie's balls for just doing a half-hour fight sequence.
That's all the Rocky movies pretty much end the same way, with a 20 to 30 minute long fight.
Like, it's sort of it's not quite the same, but it's similar to the Road Warrior having the balls to end the movie on a 30-minute straight chase sequence. It's one of those where you just like. Although I think one of the most interesting, and I wish that another movie would do this, but 36 Chamber of Shaolin is like the whole movie is a training montage, and then he beats up like 3 guys at the end, and that's it. And it's like the whole movie is about the training. Like, that is the movie, is the training, and I kind of wish like more movies would go that direction. It's like a pretty unique premise for a fighting based movie, but anyways, the fight.
I think just like we remember from our history lessons, the important thing to remember is that he punched Drago so hard that communism actually collapsed that day.
That's right.
And then created world peace by noting that if he could change, then I could change, then you could change, then we all could change.
So
And this is, I think, what I was gonna, Bryce. I know that this is not. I'm not gonna come in as hot here as maybe you wanted me to, but I think that it is kind of cute in this movie how their idea of like kind of what like the communist Soviet way to have a Rocky figure would be is that they also have this like Jesus figure who like he alone is like glorified, and like they're making this guy into a superhuman. Like they got it. I don't know how you make a movie about like the like philosophy of like individual glory versus the glory of the collective or whatever. Like you can't really make a Rocky movie about that. But it's like a funny misunderstanding of like, why are the Soviet guys bad? It's because their Jesus hero boxer, he uses machines
steroids.
and they've got scary looking lights on him, and he's got steroids. When it's like that wouldn't be how it worked at all. Like,
well,
yeah.
but also, I mean, is the Soviet Union wasn't really about the collective, not really, right?
No,
I mean,
that's
especially under like Stalin, it was about the glory of one dude.
Yeah,
it was
just another
wasn't a
way
boxer.
for power-hungry people to exploit poor people to enrich themselves. Only they pretended that it wasn't.
that it wasn't.
Yeah,
that,
I'm not, and I'm not the right person to talk about like the difference between the Soviet communism versus like all the different flavors of Marxism. But
all you have to do is
I
listen
guess
to
what
that
am I-
Warren Beatty speech from Network. He lays it all out. It's all
Yeah. I guess
all government is pretty much the same when it comes down to it.
It's funny though that if they were going to just kind of like take the most broad brush version of like what would be the Soviet version of Rocky, like what would be the bummer of if you took a Rocky type figure and transposed him onto like the
Right.
culture of like the late USSR.
But he's also a
Like, that's
composite
not what
of all of those like giant Russian weightlifters and stuff, right? From
But
the
I mean,
Olympics
but again,
and
the thing
boxing and stuff.
the thing that I
Like,
find kind of especially weird about the end of this movie is like, if that's the way it worked, then the Soviet Union would have fallen in 1980 when the Miracle on Ice happened, because the unbeatable Russian hockey team got beaten by the scrubby college kid U.S. hockey.
I mean, that was
team, and,
the beginning.
The point
of
is that
you know?
Herb Albert didn't come out and say that he could change and they could change and
Well,
they could all
yeah,
change.
well,
that was the missing ingredient.
did he in the movie where it was Kurt Russell though? Maybe he did. I don't remember. Also, did you just say Herb Alpert like in the Tijuana Brass?
I mean, maybe I got that wrong. I have not seen Miracle since it was in theaters, and I'm not as big of a hockey film as you are, so apologies to his family, whatever his name is.
I took that completely at face value, and I was like, well, I guess I didn't know that Herb Alpert performed at the Olympics.
1 second.
Well, yeah, I mean that makes sense that you wouldn't know that because he didn't. Herb Brooks was the name of the
Herb
coach
Brooks.
of the
There we go.
US
I got the
Olympic
Herb
hockey
right,
team.
man. That was the important
We'll
part.
shut up. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if that was how if sports could undo totalitarian regimes, then fuck, man, like Jesse Owens would have beat Nazism, right? Like that would have been it.
Wait, he didn't?
You saying he didn't?
I mean, he did. So okay. To be clear, I am not trying to underplay Jesse Owens at all.
These things are important.
They are important, but they don't.
Right.
They don't like this movie acts like Rocky wins this boxing match and the fucking Berlin Wall's gonna come down tomorrow on Boxing Day.
We all know
the Berlin
Ronald
Wall
Reagan
comes
did
down.
that. We all know Ronald Reagan went over there and did that. That's
Right.
That's real history.
Mr.
So it
Gorbachev,
sounds
tear
like your
down this
heart needs
wall.
to be on fire with a strong desire.
Yeah, well,
Revisionist history.
The end
How-
of to call back to a very old action cast that we did a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
The end of this movie and the end of Ip Man are the same, because the end of Ip Man is Ip Man beat up that one guy ... and then China won World War II. And then the end of this movie is Rocky beat up that one guy ... Goodbye, communism.
And then the Cold War was
America.
over. Yeah. Well, yep.
Alex, are you saying he didn't?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying that.
I agree with you, Eric. I think that there is a lot of cultural value in the Miracle on Ice, and more so even in Jesse Owens winning the gold medal at the Olympics in 1936. Someone check me on that.
I mean, that one's better because, like, you can debate the merits of American capitalism versus like Soviet communism, because like America ain't that great either, but we were way better than the Nazis, at least.
I mean, I would argue that we were also way better than the Soviets, but I mean, that's a conversation for another day, I suppose.
Yeah, we mostly exploited like people in other countries, so we
Right.
didn't have to see it as much, so it's easier to ignore,
I would say that in 1985,
Joe's
were
like
probably
biting his tongue so hard.
we were probably in 1985, which is I think that's after Gorbachev had already started to try to open the economy. Like at that point in time, the USSR not doing good. That's my my very educated take on this.
Well, that is kind of the interesting thing is when you look at it is that we had this like the 80s and Top Gun, Rocky IV, pick your fantasy that it was this massive empire that was going to crush us at any moment. Go Wolverines! When really it was like their economy was like legitimately held together with Scotch tape at this moment. I'm going to recommend to any of our 12 listeners out there Francis Spuford's book Red Plenty, which is a series of fact-based short stories that's basically about what happens when a bunch of government bureaucrats and scientists and whatever take over for a madman and a despot and suddenly have this reign of terror be over and try and fashion together a working economy out of a bunch of terrorized, brutalized peasants, and it is a absolutely fascinating read.
It's about like what is it?
It's about like the
thing?
immediately post-Stalin Russian economy up through like the next 2 decades, essentially, and it's a great book.
I'm gonna ask you to remind me the name of that later.
Okay, will do.
Yeah. So I mean,
But-
I
But there was this whole idea of like any moment the nukes are gonna fly, any moment, they're gonna come over the Canadian border, and all we're gonna have to save us is forgive me, the Ghost of Powers Booth for mangling the line, but like 1 billion Chinese scarecrows, it's like it was never going to happen, like not at this point, not in this era, like the Soviet tech essentially didn't exist. It was all just poverty.
Well, that's the funny thing about a lot of these movies. Like I sometimes a lot of years I re-listen to our older Christmas episodes, and the one that sticks out to me that relates to this conversation is Eric talking about how ridiculous it is in Die Harder that Bill Sadler's character is like terrified of the Domino's theory of communism in like 1990 or 91 or whenever that is, and it's like, oh no, these banana republics are gonna come and get us if Bill Sadler doesn't like reinstall this like puppet dictator.
I literally don't remember any of this.
Yeah, no, you talked about it quite a
Stop
bit.
reminding me of things I said 10 years ago. Those podcasts don't exist as far as I'm concerned.
Literally everyone screams at the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 25 years later.
But these
35.
these kinds of movies, the sort of red-blooded right-leaning propaganda action movies, like that's just their bread and butter. And the idea that Rocky knocking out Drago is knocking out communism is just like specifically the Soviet version of communism, like I would be shocked if it ended any other way. Right? Like that's just how it goes, sort of similar to what Bryce was saying. But I think that the boxing match is pretty well done, although I think it was interesting that it's a 15 rounder, and I didn't look it up.
15 rounds. Rocky ones are all 15
yeah
rounds.
I was trying to remember when they moved from First of all,
yeah,
almost
right.
only title matches really were 15 rounds to begin with, and this isn't for the title, so it shouldn't have been 15 rounds no matter
I thought
what.
it's 12 in the Creed
It's
movies,
12
isn't it?
now. Well, because now it is 12.
Yeah.
So most fights are 10, but title fights are 12. And it used to be that title fights were 15, like at least back in the 50s. I don't know when they moved from 15 to 12, though, but I did think that was interesting because I thought it was around this time that they moved to 12. But I wasn't certain, so I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, I don't know. I think my final thoughts on Rocky 4 before we kind of move fully on to Creed 2. I think that the new cut is better. I think, like everybody kind of has been saying, like it's not really a good movie either way. Like neither.
Yeah,
cut
you're right.
is...
You're right, Joe. It's not a good movie. It's a great movie.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's not. It is, but it is a movie that I love to watch.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
I feel like in 5 years, because I figured out the last time I watched Rocky 4 was when the original Creed came out. Like, in 5 years, when I'm in the mood to watch Rocky 4 again, I will not hesitate before going to theatrical cut. Like, once again, like, the new cut might be moderately less kitschy, but who wants, like, a less kitschy Rocky 4?
Well, like I said, for me, it's just that the
Sylvester
first...
Stallone played the Mass Effect series, and he decided that he wanted to get all that pro-robot propaganda out of his films because he didn't want us to be destroyed by the Reapers, obviously. Yeah.
So time has made a fool of me before because I have definitely, like most infamously, I was pro Aliens director's cut until I went back and watched them both again, and then I was like, oh yeah, the director's cut of Aliens is actually like kind of garbage, and it's not garbage because the movie's really good, but it's like it kills the pacing. It kills the pacing, and it the whole thing where, like, I mean, obviously the movie's called Aliens, so you know
there's at least two.
There, right?
Ahem. Did you disagree with me back then? I need to go check the tape.
Disagree with you?
Disagreed with all of us.
Yeah, pretty much everybody else said that the director's cut was worse, and I was like, no, I'm team director's cut. And then I think I rewatched them both right before we did the like big podcast on all the Alien movies, and I was like, I was wrong.
I'm going to go ahead and put on the record that I think that the Aliens podcast is one of the best we ever did. Just because we had the fucking brains to trash the news segment and just get onto the fucking movies.
Did we trash it, or did we just put it as a separate podcast? I don't remember. That was so long
We must
ago.
have done that.
Talking about the news segment. Next.
Damn.
But so maybe time will prove me a fool in this too. Maybe in 10 years I'll revisit Rocky 4 again and be like, wow, that Rocky versus Drago cut is fucking garbo. But
they're both fine. They both have their merits. Like I said, the cut I really would like is one that just like puts the Duke speech in and like gives Adrian a little bit more character and agency, but also keeps the dumb robot stuff and kind of like keeps the like my ideal cut of this movie would just be one that was like an hour and 40 minutes instead of an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah.
Also, we could get rid of the Hearts on Fire montage because that song sucks ass.
That song does suck ass. Is that Survivor?
I've got a strong desire to go fight both of you. Is what I have to say. So.
I thought it was all Journey. I thought they I guess
no.
not.
Burning Heart is Survivor, and
Hearts on Fire. Is
Easy Way Out is Easy Way Out is Robert Tepper. So
reprising his position from Angel of the City in Cobra, still waiting for the Ethan Chang penned sequel, Marion Cobretti.
That is the one good thing that Rocky Balboa, the shitty sixth movie, gave to the world is the promise of Marion Cobretti.
I mean, when we did Cobra, right?
We did Cobra.
We said at that time that Cobra is basically just Sylvester Stallone like sitting in front of a mirror and jerking off for like an hour and a half, right? Because it's basically all that movie is.
But speaking of
cutting pizza with scissors as well.
Yes, cutting. That's the most important thing. Cutting pizza with scissors. But also, I don't want to belabor the point, but since we're talking about montages, that's a movie that literally loses like the entire plot to a giant montage in the middle. because they cut it down so they could get like more showings in the. We talked about it at the time. I don't exactly remember now, but like the whole explanation of the bad guys and the weird cult of the night slasher or whatever the hell is all gone and just montaged in the middle of that movie. It's bizarre.
There's a whole second movie that we're doing a podcast about.
Marion,
we don't
Marion
have to-
Cobretti, or
We don't have to do all of Creed
no.
2 plot.
Yeah,
line.
no,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
guess
I
Oh,
really
yeah.
just mostly want to talk about the Dolph Lundgren material in Creed 2. I think we kind of talked about like my attitude for the rest of the movie, which is that it's fine. Like, it's not as good as Creed, but I would like literally rank this as like the third best Rocky movie, and thus being the best Rocky sequel that is not called Creed, or you know, I mean the third best Rocky movie that's not called Rocky or Creed. Like, I think it's a better movie than, you know, than certainly Rocky 2, 3, 4, 5, or Rocky Balboa. So
Yeah,
that's my own personal ranking.
I have. It's really hard for me because Rocky 3, I would have said up until this most recent rewatch is my favorite Rocky movie because it's so tight and it's such a great sports movie, but it's just like so scorchingly racist that it's really, and it gets like, it was back, like it was a thing that was a fact about it that I recognized 20 years ago, but it just becomes more and more awful as time goes on, that it's, like I said earlier, it like there is a not generous interpretation of that movie where it's like basically like white power propaganda or something. It's just like,
Yeesh. It's been a
the
really
way
long
that
time
that
since I've
movie-
watched Rocky 3, apparently.
it's the way
Yeah,
that the
same.
movie frames the Mr. T character, and it's just it's
I
really,
mean, he
it
pities
isn't
you,
great.
fool. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I fucking love Mr. T so much, but it's just he is such a lazy stereotype, and I mean that is the character of Mr. T also, like that's who Mr. T chose to like portray himself as, like but if you watch that movie again now, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a much better version of that movie where it's about Mr. T, or like, because like that character is way more interesting than Rocky at that point, and he's actually the underdog. Like the lengths that they go to make it so that like Rocky is the underdog, or Rocky, you know, like that movie isn't even really about him. It's about Rocky versus himself more, and it's kind of a shame because like that character is pretty interesting, but Clubber Lang just kind of gets short shrift. That's why I'm kind of interested in this. It's the only thing that makes me like I don't want them to make a movie about Mr. T's son boxing
I have to say,
Adonis
I'm actually,
Creed,
really,
but
I'm
I
really
am kind of
disappointed
interested to see if they can like rescue that character, and like in
not
the
gonna
same
lie,
way
'cause
that they did for some of the stuff with Apollo Creed and the other in the movies.
I'm really disappointed that you told me that, because like I kind of had this idea, and I had this idea in my head for the Chris Pine Star Trek franchise too, where I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they got to 6 movies, because, you know, the original Star Trek film series had like 6 series like entries in it, so wouldn't it be cool if like they did like 6 on their own? At this point, that's not going to happen, but I was, you know, while I really love Stallone's performance in Creed, especially, and I think he's also quite good in Creed 2, I wasn't disappointed when I heard that he was stepping away from Creed 3, because I'm like, oh, that's a cool opportunity. Like, that's like the opportunity for this to step in on its own, and like, you know, the death of Creed is so much part of that character and so much part of Creed 1 that it makes sense for them to resolve that in Creed 2, but for them to literally just keep recycling
Every
like
Rocky
the villains in Rocky
Yeah.
villain, like, it's just like, that's like such a bullshit idea. Like, I'm actually like, I was actually really happy that that movie was happening, and I'm really disappointed that you told me that's the premise of it. So
He'll
I don't-
eventually have to have the son of Mason Dixon, and he'll be like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like
Seriously.
12 years old or something.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's just like what the rumor is. Like Michael B. Jordan is like writing and directing that movie, I think, or
I
at least
think you're
directing
right.
it.
I think you're correct, yeah.
So
He is the
like
director.
whether or not that's actually what it turns out to be, but that's like the rumor at the moment is that that's what that is. But I don't
So
know
I-
if that's what it will be or not for sure. I would prefer that it isn't, because I, you know.
So just to kick off the conversation, I'll say Creed 2 ain't Creed. It's fine. It's a good watchable film that I enjoy a lot. The
Yeah, I had
director
fun with it.
the director Stephen Capable actually made this really nice coming of age slash crime film called The Land that's set in Cleveland that I really like. And So he's not an untalented dude. He is unfortunately making the next Transformers movie, which means that he's basically dead to me.
Rise of the Beasts. They're bringing the Beast Wars into it, man.
But even if I'm not,
Oh, God.
even if he's not a Ryan Coogler, I think he is a genuinely talented director. And I'm going to be
Also,
very
very quickly, we're going to do a news bit here because I'm seeing this.
No.
Make it
I mean,
stop.
Want you to know, Bryce. I want you to know, Bryce. They are making a new Star Trek
let's talk
movie.
about Ryan. Let's talk about Ryan Coogler instead.
Well, but I just
really
want to
good,
say,
right?
I want to say that one thing about Capable's Cleveland background that I love, and it's an Easter egg, and nothing will notice. And as someone who is currently suffering clinical depression because his beloved Cleveland Browns just got knocked out of the playoffs at the last second by 1 point, quite literally. Every time that there's ESPN or whatever on like the TV in Creed 2, which is a lot, like the ticker tape shows Cleveland teams and they're always ahead. So I see you, Capable, and I appreciate you, and I love you, man. So
I appreciate that you've decided Stephen Capel is Stephen Capable.
Yes, he is. He made a perfectly cromulent sequel that makes him very capable in my eyes.
That is one of the best things about the Creed movies is the integration of the ESPN stuff. I especially love the PTI segment in the first Creed. That was. I mean, the
original. I was actually going to mention Rocky IV. Like Stu Nahan is the
he does the announcing in all the Rocky movies.
Yeah,
and the ring announcer is like a real ring announcer guy.
Dude, if Anthony was here, we would not have missed this. The fucking mustache on the ring announcer in the Creed Drago fight in Rocky IV.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
But I think the thing that really elevates Creed 2, and like I said, it's a perfectly good film, and like for a sequel just to be not completely disappointing these days, like is a high bar to clear. So Jordan's good in it, Stallone's good in it, Tessa Thomas is good in it, but I really genuinely think that Dolph Lundgren is great in it, and I think it's the best acting of his career. And like there are just a couple of scenes here that I want to talk about. I think the you really could have gone a cheesy way, but I want to hear what y'all think of it too. But I mean, I think that the characterization on the son is really interesting too, where there's the kind of one scene they could have easily made him like this kind of arrogant Drago guy part 2, but they kind of play him as kind of this sad mama's boy who's just like bullied by his dad and just happens to be really massive. And I think that that's actually a much better characterization. Like they kind of have that one scene where like the reporter asks him about the loss and he goes like, "What loss?" And that's like the closest it gets to Drago Redux. But other than that, it places him as like surprisingly vulnerable, which I think pays off at the end in a really nice way. And
that movie does a much better job of sort of portraying him as not just humanizing, but he is a victim of his father's failure and how that affected his life, right? Like that's one of the things that's kind of missing from Rocky IV is showing how much of Drago's life is out of his control.
Right.
But that's something that they do a better job of in Creed 2. Although actually I think they could have dived more. I think that stuff would have been more interesting than the 8 fights between Adonis and Rocky where they're like yelling their emotions at each other loudly. You know what I mean? Like they could have cut some of that and put some more stuff in there. Because you're right, Bryce. Like Dolph Lundgren is quite good in that movie, and he keeps getting better as he gets older. Yeah. He was such a we did what was that?
Masters of the Universe.
Did Showdown in Little Tokyo,
we did. Yeah, we did
right?
both of those. We did Showdown in Little Tokyo,
and I watched Pentathlon and a couple of his other movies and he's so lumbering and awkward and just like he's so uncomfortable in all his early movies that in Rocky IV it works because it's part of the character, but in most of the other movies it just makes for bad film going experience.
We talked a little bit about the Punisher.
As he gets older, he keeps getting more and more comfortable. Like when he was in the Expendables, Like he was actually like pretty good in that movie, and he's quite good in Creed too. So maybe it's time to give Dolph Lundgren another go. You know?
And well, I mean, honestly, like obviously we don't know shit, but I think it is interesting that he shows his age more, and we kind of poke fun at Stallone for once again looking like a sentient pile of HGH, but like Dolph definitely looks more like a 65-year-old man who keeps himself in good shape.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
So I mean, there's a couple of scenes that I mean, like once again, like the setup is so cheeseball of Drago's
it's the
son
same
fights
movie. It's the same movie. It's just better done.
I think there's like some really kind of cool grace notes to it, like like the opening scene of and I think the cool thing about Dolph is he doesn't overplay it. Like he's not like going like you can picture the version of this movie where it's like Drago on the sidelines going like, kill him, like you must break him now.
Well, he does kind of. I mean, he does kind of at the when he comes to the restaurant and talks to Rocky. He's like, "My son will break your boy," and it's like,
but I like that too because he doesn't like overplay it. And I love the line where he just goes like, and I think to his credit, Stallone delivers the return line really well. But when he just like is looking around at Adrian's restaurant and like there's all the pictures from Rocky's career, and he just goes like, no pictures of me on the wall, and like he doesn't say it like he's like hating him. It's just like a statement, and then like Stallone's rejoinder of like, no pictures of you. Like
you killed my best friend.
Really nice moment.
Yeah.
Very sinister without being overplayed.
That's kind of the other thing about that. Not to go back to Rocky IV too much, but. And I feel like they don't play it up like it's this super personal revenge thing in Creed 2 as much, but like people do die in boxing matches. And I think now this is an exhibition match, so it should have been stopped before that happened. But like, and they do kind of make it like Drago keeps punching him after the bell, or like he bumps the ref and stuff. But like, realistically speaking, like that does happen. People get killed in the ring. And unless it's turned out that it's nefarious. Like there's a famous case, and I can't remember the name of the boxer, but where like the boxer and his corner removed some of the padding from the gloves and he beat someone to death. And I think he ended up going to prison for it because that's not like in the normal course of the sport, but like people get killed in boxing matches. That happens. And again, the movies do these things for dramatic effect, and I get it, but like there's like this super hard grudge, especially when Apollo is the one who's like, don't throw in the towel no matter what. I gotta fight this guy, I gotta see this through to the end. And it's like, you get punched in the head a certain number of times, it's gonna fucking kill you.
Well, but I mean, like Lundgren plays it more like as like a guy who's like really happy and satisfied, and like what's the word I'm looking for, like just fulfilled to be having this second run of success, like not so much as like this guy who just like dreams of murder. Also, Bryce, by the way, you did not spoiler tag your review on Letterboxd. I would just like to say, so totally. I thought I did, so my bad.
Totally knew what was gonna happen.
Well, but we should talk.
No, you totally knew what was gonna happen before you turned the movie on.
But
not specifically. Not specifically.
I don't think I did know what was gonna happen at the end.
I knew Adonis was gonna win for sure.
I know we're getting at the end of this podcast and everything, but I just want to say that, and like I'm sure we might talk about other details of the movie, but like the core idea of this movie is brilliant, and I don't think I knew what it is, which is that literally everyone fails the moral test of throwing in the towel. Like Creed fails it, Stallone fails it, like Rocky fails it, Duke fails it, Adonis fails it. Everyone has too much pride and too much whatever to throw in the towel. And the idea, I wish I knew who came up with it so I could give him like a big hug and kiss, but the idea of having Drago be the only character with the moral clarity to be like, there are more important things in life, like I will be the one to admit defeat and throw in the towel, is just the most beautiful, perfect payoff that I could imagine to this, and like is the greatest possible arc that you could right for Drago. Well, I'm not even. Look. Fucking Avengers Endgame has shit on this. Like this is like the most satisfying arc I have seen in a payoff I've seen in a mainstream movie in the last decade.
But,
I'm not even like
Bryce,
hyperbole. I'm not even lying. I love that moment so goddamn.
Have you considered this? Wouldn't it be better if like if Victor had a brother who convinced his dad to throw in the towel, and then it turned out he was actually on Adonis's side the whole time, and it was a
I'm not
scheme
sure
to
what
get
we're
him to
referring
lose. I think
But I'm gonna
Eric
go ahead and say no.
Eric knows what I'm referring
No,
to.
yeah, you're right, Joe. You got it.
Yeah. Sorry. There's a very famous wrestling angle, and Ethan probably too knows what I'm talking about. There's a very famous wrestling angle where Owen Hart convinces his parents to throw in the towel by making it looks like he's concerned for Brett's well-being, but in fact he is in the camp of Brett's opponent and was just trying to get Brett to lose the title the whole time. But he,
of course, yes,
plays on the sympathy of Stu and Helen Hart and gets Helen to throw in the towel during the match. So
to get us back on track, I love the ending of Creed 2 like more than I like legitimately like the ending of any modern blockbuster. Like I just think it's fucking perfect.
I mean, it's a good ending. I knew it was coming because some asshole put it in their Letterboxd review that
I
Drago
really
throws
did
in the
honestly
towel
think that I
to
put
save his son.
a spoiler tag on that. My bad.
So I don't know if that's better or worse than the time I found out you were having a baby from a Letterboxd review.
This is true. I do have a baby. I'd like to point out that he's 2 months now, and I'm actually training him to defeat Alex. Unfortunately, he can only bench
Alex's son. Yeah, Alex's
Yeah,
son.
Alex's son.
Alex's son.
He's got a 2-month lead on me. Well, no, not 11 months. Even if I did it today.
Yeah, even if he knocks someone up today. That's right.
You know there are dogs in Austin, Texas. They live on the streets.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought Creed 2 is one of those movies that, and we've talked about this a lot. It's probably 15 minutes too long. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes.
It's at least 15 minutes too long.
Yeah. And you know, I really like I can't remember the actor's name, but he played
Sylvester Stallone.
No.
Michael B. Jordan.
No.
Dolph Lundgren.
Not Michael B. Jordan, but the other guy who was in The Wire.
Michael B. Jordan.
Avon Barksdale.
Yeah, the guy who plays Avon Barksdale. As Duke's son. Yeah.
There's another Wire character in this movie. The guy who plays Tony Gray in The Wire is in he works in the hospital.
It's very exciting when he shows up in the first Creed movie because it's like, oh yeah, man, it's great to have these two guys together. Also, where the fuck is Wallace?
String? Yes.
Where the fuck is Wallace?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of good performances in it. I think Tessa Thompson is great as Bianca.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. I love the moment of, even though, like, once again, like, yeah, there's not a ton. Well, she probably ends up better than Talia Shire.
She has more to do than Talia Shire in most of the Rockies.
But I do love the moment of her singing his fight song. Yep. Like, I thought that was such a cool little beat, you know.
Again, that's extremely professional wrestling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I liked Eric kind of touched on
this. It's not quite as good as Pretty Ricky Conlon's entrance in Creed 1, where he has a midget blowing frame in front of him. But I mean, it's almost there. It's almost there, guys. So
yeah, I going back to what Eric said a little bit, I think it's great that although Michael Buffer phones in his Let's Get Ready to Rumble in Russia. Let's be clear on that. That is a subpar Let's Get Ready to Rumble. He was doing better Let's Get Ready to Rumbles on WCW Nitro, where he wasn't even pronouncing the wrestlers' names correctly, and his Let's Get Ready to Rumble was at least intact. But that they have Max Kellerman and Jim Lampley and, you know, all these people. Like, Jim Lampley is, like, for me, like, from the time I was a little boy watching boxing with my dad, like, Jim Lampley has been the voice of boxing commentary. You know, like, that's such an important part to me of making this feel in 2018 like it was a legitimate, you know, title match. I also like that they do explain that his record isn't like, he hasn't beat a whole bunch of guys, but he has a professional record. He's not just like a dude who comes out of nowhere and gets a fight. He has a professional record. He has beaten people.
I mean, the entire premise of Rocky is a dude comes out of nowhere and gets a fight for not legitimate boxing reasons.
Well, yeah, but Rocky, in the original Rocky, he's supposed to be like, he's like a Buster Douglas figure, right? Like, he's supposed to be like he's a tomato can tune-up fight for, you know,
Well, it's just supposed to be Apollo literally picks him because he likes the way his name sounds and thinks it'll sound good on a poster.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's literally just because he wants to fight a guy named the Italian Stallion Rocky Balboa on the bicentennial because the other person he was supposed to fight had to drop out.
Right. But it wasn't, it's not a it's similar to like, again, the Buster Douglas thing, which obviously that didn't go well for Tyson because he wasn't prepared for it. He didn't take it seriously, but it's that kind of, that kind of thing.
That's how you end up with a killer song written about you. So,
So yeah, I don't know. I did like Creed 2. I feel like I do need to go back and watch Creed 1 now. I don't think
definitely worth
Creed,
your time.
Creed 1 is really
You
good.
haven't seen it at all?
I have not seen Creed 1. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just genuinely curious, like what your opinion of Creed 2 was, like, not having seen. I mean, I know you said that you're generally positive, but like, did it like make sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, he win. So I guess I didn't know if he does he win the title at the end of Creed 1 or is the beginning of Creed 2?
True to the Rocky pattern, he loses. So it's the beginning of Creed 2 is him winning the title for the first time.
I mean, the premise of that movie is that a guy comes out of nowhere and gets a fight he doesn't deserve for reasons that don't make sense for professional boxing, other than his name looks good on a poster. So, I mean, these two movies are like Creed is like a remake of the first Rocky, and this is a remake of Rocky 4. So.
But in the best way. Like I said, I said this before, and I'll say it again. Like, the amazing thing to me about Creed is like it somehow gets as close to that tone of the original Rocky as you could in our modern era. And like the fact that, like, to me, like, I picture like the Rocky franchise by the time you get to Creed is just like this horrible ship with like all these barnacles covering it, and just covered with like 40 years of kitsch and bullshit and stuff that no one cares about. And Coogler just took it and like just stripped it down to the parts that made it work and just made it this gleaming, shining, beautiful thing.
I mean, is the only other real counter, like, or not counter example, but like complementary example of that, like the first Pierce Brosnan Bond movie?
I mean, I would go for more Casino Royale than I would for GoldenEye in that case, but like I won't argue the point.
Well, I mean,
the Pierce Brosnan movies are also the cruft of the.
Well,
exactly.
GoldenEye is a good
one.
Some
of the barnacles of
the ones that aren't GoldenEye are definitely some of the barnacles, but GoldenEye is good. Is one of the better James Bond movies.
I feel like we should save this for a Casino Royale versus GoldenEye podcast.
We should,
because I have things to say about that.
So I would like to say that we've done however many of these we've done, 100 and however many, and the only James Bond movie we've ever talked about was fucking Moonraker.
Yeah, that's because it's the only one really worth talking about.
That sounds like it knows what we're doing next week. Next
right.
So I don't know. I don't have in front of me how many James Bond movies there are, but how many
20
has,
some? 20.
How many times has he gone to space again?
Just
how many of them
one,
shoot a laser gun?
Yeah, how many times did he shoot a laser gun in space?
Just the one, I think. Pretty sure.
How many have a dude with metal teeth?
How many of them have?
A couple. More than one.
Movies have Richard Kiel.
Two have Richard Kiel.
Oh yeah, you're right. There is two. We should do that other one then.
Before we leave Creed 2, I just want to say that you guys saying that it's 15 minutes too long is completely incorrect, and I can prove it because we never find out. It's actually
20 minutes too long.
We never find out if the city council bothered to fix
the lamp.
Yeah. So if they don't resolve that important subplot, then it's
gotta save some things for Rocky 3, man.
I did remember thinking that the streetlight plot was unresolved, but
listen, he survives cancer and fixes his relationship with his son, so then now we have to find out about the street lamp in the next one.
And then to make as atonement to Joe, I will throw up a spoiler warning here, but I will just say that in what I think is a really nice cameo, because I didn't expect it, Milo, I'm not going to pronounce his last name.
Ventimiglia.
Shows up for the last scene as Rocky's son, and you get to see him meet his grandson for the first time. And like I said, I don't think that Stallone's performance in this one is as good as his one in Creed, but that moment is, and I just love how he underplays it, and the line, look just like his mother, like actually did get me a little bit misty. So it's
Yeah, the fact that
it's a great moment.
The fact that the son was a little tiny robot that said "Happy Birthday, Polly."
Yes,
I thought that was a
exactly.
really great touch.
So I'm just saying, if that is truly the last moment we see of Rocky, I think that's an excellent place to leave the character, and I will wrap up my comments with "Happy Birthday, Polly."
I might honestly think that it will fuck it up if that's not the last time we see the character of Rocky Balboa. But actually, sorry, there's one thing that I didn't get that I was curious about. Did
you want to know more about how Polly fucked the robot?
Yes, I did want to. No,
because I have diagrams.
What?
I'm working on a secret project.
Creed 1 already shows Polly's extensive pornography collection.
That's right.
So that has been canonically solved. Just so.
All right.
You know.
No, I was gonna ask: is Buddy Marcel the promoter? Is he a character in the first one, or is he?
He's not. Is he?
No, I don't believe he's in it. It's Conlon's manager who's promoting the fight in the first one.
Okay.
Because
and Conlon's manager is the British guy from Rambo 4 who has only one mood in what I assume is anything that he's in, because he does it so well in these two movies.
He does a great job as Conlon's manager.
His mood is fuck off.
In a very reasonable way in Creed, so you know.
So the entire basis of
Joe,
Marcus
I will do the Pepsi guarantee that you will enjoy Creed 1. I don't see a universe in which you do not like that movie. So
fair enough. I will check it out. So apparently Stallone is currently in post-production on Expendables 4. That's what he's occupying his time with now. So
that's what I'd actually would like to ask you guys, because I talked about my fondness for Florian Yeah, not gonna try for that one either. But he is apparently he hasn't done any. He didn't do anything directly after Creed 2, but now I see that he's in the Eli Roth Borderlands film that fills me with rage, in a Chris Pine film. But then he was
Razor Fist in Shang-Chi.
Well, okay, that's what I was about to ask. I have sworn off the Marvel movies, so I have not seen that. Is he good in that? Or
actually, he's pretty funny. He's pretty funny in that. He's like a henchman for the Mandarin in Shang-Chi.
Okay.
So, also, by the way, since I just listened to an old podcast where you talked about how much you loved the twist in Iron Man 3. I will just say that if you're gonna not swear off the Marvel, if you're gonna unswear off the Marvel movie, Shang-Chi is a good one for you to see because Ben Kingsley's in it. So
I do have access to Disney Plus, and I do like Tony Leung, so I will eventually watch that, I'm sure.
Although the end is a giant
4 hours a day holding an infant, so
instead of the end being like a super sweet fucking wire fu fight, which is what it should be, it's a giant CG fucking orgy.
That's the one problem.
I mean, a fucking orgy's the best kind.
That's true.
But that's the reason I really haven't gotten around to watching it, is that I hear the fights get progressively worse.
They do. They get worse and worse until the end when it's
yeah. I hear the opening scene are actually these like really kind of fun like throwback kung fu fights, and then like by the end you're just like in
the fight
typical Marvel CGI group.
The fight where he fights Florian, whatever his name is one of the fun ones though. He fights him on a bus and the director specifically said he was sort of trying to throw back to Jackie Chan's kind of funnier, quirkier fight scenes. It's not as good as any of those, to be clear, but that's what he's going for, and it worked for me more than it didn't. And also, I guess since we're talking about superhero movies and Sylvester Stallone,
No, we're not talking about that. We're going to bed.
Very quickly, I'm just going to say that I did enjoy Stallone's turn as King Shark in The Suicide Squad.
I also, yes. The monosyllables were used very well.
Yes, hand.
I didn't have anything really to say, and I still don't have much to say about Creed 2. I think it's pretty good. It's fine, whatever. But there's one thing that I meant to say and I didn't say, which is I really don't like how they have a Russian guy named Ivan and then his son is named Victor. Like, we need to get some creative Russian guy names. There's
So,
Russian guy names that are way more
Dmitri?
fun to say than those super basic ones. Like those are names that wrestlers would have been given in the 70s or 80s, which is
You hear
appropriate
that?
for a movie from 85, but it's not really appropriate for a movie from 2018.
You hear that,
we need some-
Dragos? Ethan Chang says you basic.
I mean, to be fair,
Yeah.
Nikolai Volkov's real name was Nikolai Volkov, so I'm pretty sure. I guess I'm going to double check myself on that one, but I'm almost positive.
Well, for sure, the first time I knew of the name Nikolai was from Nikolai Volkov. So, and that was like when I was a little kid.
Oh
So
no, that is not his real name. Nikolai Volkov's real name is Josip. I'm not going to try that middle name. I'm not trying the middle name on Nikolai Volkov. His last name is Peruzovic or Zovich, I guess. I don't know.
Here's a random website
Josip
with the top
Peruzovic.
top Russian names for boys, which is probably accurate. Alexander,
Yeah.
Boris, Alexei, Daniel, Leonid, Nikita, Anatoly, Dmitry, Igor, Ivan, Luka, Mikhail. I mean, these are all pretty.
Yeah, those are the pretty basic ones, which I
Yeah.
mean that's your
Pasha,
John, Joe, Mike.
Artem's good.
Artem is good. Yeah.
I think that Nikolai Volkov's name, and now really the podcast should be over, is
Well, it's not.
Yosif
Oh, it could be Yosip.
Roye.
That's how you're going with that middle
Royer.
name. I mean,
I'm
that
going-
sounds as good as anything.
Roye
This
Peruzovic.
podcast just became the problematic name pronunciation podcast, and I need to go to bed. So
It's not problematic. They're white.
I'm just now. Oh boy. I'm just now putting together that I could technically be called Sasha. I'm not Russian, but like somebody could do that, and it would be accurate because Sasha is like short for Alexander.
Huh.
Okay.
I don't
You
think I
want to be
realized
called-
that.
You know what?
What's that? I knew that was true for like it's obviously with like Russian people named Alexander that's what that's short for.
I mean, you're always in a
I
hurry,
knew
so.
that existed. What is? Oh.
And with that, I'm off to bed. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end it. So thanks everybody for hanging out. We don't know what we're doing next month yet, but have a happy holidays, happy New Year, whatever it is.
My heart is on fire with a strong desire for you all to have a Merry Christmas.
Yes.
So,
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy. I think Kwanzaa's after Christmas, if I remember correctly. So if that's the thing you celebrate, enjoy that. Chinese New Year, whatever it is you're doing. I hope everybody has a good
Get them
one.
all.
Get them all.
Do all of them.
Yeah, do all of them. And we'll be back next year with more of whatever the fuck we've been doing for almost 2 years. We've been back now. So get ready for that. And we'll be back. Good night, everybody.
Bye.